Hey, hope everybody's doing well. I want to continue our series on just kind of navigating through some of our templates on planning. Again, a couple things that we'll always say with this is it's simply one way. There's a lot of different ways to win ball games and to prepare teams, and this is just one way. Just basically breaking down week by week, day by day, taking big scale or large scale, and just bringing it down all the way down to the individual day. We think about it, whether it's called periodization, planning, whatever you may think about. I think it's also important to note that there's a lot of different types of terminology that could be used. We may say general prep, other people may say GPP, other people may say off season. There's a lot of different ways to think about it, but the main thing is the principle behind what we're trying to do. If we're way, way, way away from season, we're probably in a general mode. As we get closer to the season, we're getting much more specific to what we need within that sport. Also, along that way, from the physical standpoint, things go from just like with general fitness, more toward what that sport looks like. Is it power? Is it strength based? Is it endurance based? And then along that road, we want to kind of dive into some different areas. And then depending on the age of the athlete, the needs of the athlete, the specialty skill set of the athlete, we'll need to train them accordingly so that when we get to the beginning of season, they're ready to go. So with that, let's kind of dig into this a little bit. We've shared this in some other videos a little bit about some of the templates that we have. Okay, so this one right here we're going to talk about today is more of a long-term plan. It's often called an annual plan. If you think about it in a 52-week setting like this right here, we have 52 weeks all the way across here, and then we got detailed breakdown of that in the given situation here, coming back from a period of time away from campus. We're going to look at it a little bit closer. We won't use 52 weeks. We'll actually use, let's just say 12 in this example. Okay. So in this example, we're going to use a hypothetical team. We won't even name the team. We won't even name the direction, the level, anything like that. We're just training an athlete to be ready for a competition. Let's say this week right here. Let's say that week right there is the beginning of where we need to go. Okay. So the neat thing about this template is it's Excel based, so there's no right or wrong way to do it. You can basically take your plan and put it in here. You can delete cells, rows, you can add rows, columns, anything that you need. But for the sake of this right here, let's imagine that this right here is going to be our pre-season. And then this is our true in season. Again, this is not any sport in particular. This is just for an example. So we're going to just throw some different things out here. Say that's where we're needing to be prepared for. Throw some blue on there just to kind of keep it colorful. Okay, so now we know that this block of time right there is what we're working with. We're working from here backwards. And this could be now, this could be May, June, whenever we know this clear date when we can come back, we can start working backwards. Okay, so right now, I'm sitting here thinking I have 12 weeks to work with. There's a lot of different ways I can think about it. Let's just, for the sake of it being clean in the example, let's just go 3 4-week blocks. So I know that this is going to be off season here. So again, I'm thinking large, wide angle, and then I'm going to break it down to a little bit closer. So I know this is my off season. We'll be playing around with this. Okay, so then let's go block. Let's say right here, we want to go, let's imagine we got a power-based sport. So let's go power. Some speed in there. And this block right here, let's call that strength. You can call this anything. It could be power transfer. This could be strength block. This could be endurance or hypertrophy block. Whatever we need to. But we're just going to kind of call it here. Let's actually not even put an emphasis. We can just go like some general prep to specific. Okay, so now we know general principle, we're going general to very specific, but you could get as detailed as you wanted to. We could even put another level in there and break it down from that point. Let's say I was going to get a little bit more specific, and I'm going to be just working some GPP, some endurance work, potentially right in here. Now my next level down may be on the week scale. So how hard is each week going to be? Just for the sake of example, let's just go medium light, medium, light, we'll go heavy, light, and then we'll just kind of repeat that. Just an example, kind of getting how we're breaking this thing down. Bam. So now we know how difficult things may be through there. And then we're ready to go down to the next thing, competition. Maybe we call this competition / a special date. So now our competition special dates, I know like, hey, here's when camp starts. Here's the first week. Let's say we're playing University of number 1. Okay, and then this is University number 2, University number 3, and then let's say we have a bye week. Continue on to University number 4. So now I got my clear dates there, but it could be something simple too. Maybe this week right here, if this is August, let's say 4th of July is coming in here. Okay, so we need to consider the case for 4th of July. Are our athletes potentially moving around? Do they have the ability to do things? If we're back on campus, is there a holiday? That may jam up our week, but this special date, I want to put everything on there. It could be summer school, games, travel, anything like that. And what I can do actually is build this out even more. So I got special dates. Are there other notes? So maybe this is travel. Basically, the whole concept is I want to put all my stressors on one page. Once I get all stressors on there, I can start to continue to chip away and build that plan. Let's just keep it clean. We won't even keep that row in there. But what I did there, all I did was right click and add an extra row. And you can call it whatever you want, however you like to plan, we can do that. But let's keep that holiday there and these special dates right here. Okay, so now the next thing, let's say we've got this. We've got this right through here, and we move into the physical areas of development. So I've got strength, speed, conditioning, recovery. Let's imagine that's something we can build out with our strength conditioning staff, with our performance staff, maybe even sports medicine, get them involved with some different things. So during this week, or maybe more importantly, during this 4-week block, what are we using? What's our strength emphasis? Okay. Maybe early on, if we've been away for a period of time, maybe we're focusing on eccentrics, okay, where we're going down, or the lengthening of the muscle, or the movement is descending slowly or under control. This is really wonderful for learning technique. It's great for reintroducing activity after a period of time off, teaching young athletes, but it's also good just reinforcing good habits. But again, I will say this is just a template here. But let's say I go a couple here, and I go some isos, which would just be holding the contraction still, and then I just go regular. I mean, this doesn't have to be this at all. It could be different types of, I could put chains in there. I could put, hey, we're going to really focus on lower body strength. But the key thing here is, what's my emphasis with strength? Okay, because it's a physical quality. Okay, speed. Let's say this first 4 weeks, I may be working acceleration, and then maybe I transition over to, I don't know, top end speed, whatever you believe in as your programming. And then up here, it's just kind of a little bit more top end and some change direction drills that may be specific to your sport. And then here's a neat thing too, this is very interactive, so I can add anything I need to. So in this case here, the thing that comes between strength and power, or strength and speed, is power. Okay, so strength is basically producing force without really regard for speed per se. Power is producing force rapidly. Okay, speed is producing force rapidly, but it doesn't have a lot of external resistance there. But like power, same thing here. What would I be training here? What's the main focus? And a lot of times too, working with your strength staff, these are very complementary to one another. So I can train certain ones in certain exercises within these areas, or have specific emphasis areas, and they can complement the other. Okay, conditioning. I'm going to run into the same kind of thing here. What's my main emphasis? So if I'm a field-based sport and I know I need to be sprinting a lot and then quickly recovering before another sprint, maybe I build out my conditioning. So I work on aerobic capacity work, and then it takes me into a little bit more maybe aerobic power work, and then some lactic work, which is a little bit faster, shorter, explosive type work. And then once I get to the bottom here, closer to the season, I'm really, really heavy in that alactic area while I'm just maintaining, that aerobic system that I've spent so long developing. But again, just an example here, anything could be in here. Your terminology should be in here as well. And then in this recovery, we're still thinking the physical. All this right here is the physical for us. Okay, so what I'm thinking here with recovery is, how can I match different things to complement the other physical areas? So all these things that I filled in up top, and again, like I said, there's no specific names. Okay, everybody kind of has their own methods. There is some things that complement one another and things that come one after another pretty nicely, but you could call them whatever you want. But in this next one, the recovery, maybe certain types of recovery fit with what you've put there. And again, that's your personal philosophy, but this is an area for you to install that. Let's keep going down through here. The next area here could be for the on-field coaches. So let's designate that as blue here. So let's say that's for your on-field coaches. In this area coming up, sometimes we may have access to our athletes. Sometimes they may have captains practices, just doing individual drills. But as a coach, what do you want them to work on in regard to skill and skill development? Okay, what do you think they should be looking at in film? Like meetings are occurring almost year round. But what do you think? What do you think in terms of X's and O's they should be talking about and learning? Are you installing new scheme? What goes in these different things? And depending on the time of year, knowing that we're about 12 weeks out in this example, how can you strand your teaching so that things build on one another? Okay? And then just like I said up top, some of these things down here, if built out correctly, can complement the physical development that we're getting up here. But this is just kind of allowing you as an on-the-field staff to kind of plan out over time. And then if we all get in the same room, we can get the physical development from the performance staff, the technical tactical development from on-the-field staff and the meetings. And then the last thing that kind of comes on this planning exercise is looking at your sports performance team. Okay, so with sports med, within this area of time, let's say this first 4-week block, how can we engage people within sports med? What is their main area? Is it prehab? Is it preparatory work before practice? Is it recovery? What does that look like? But bringing them into the conversation, that's huge. The sports nutrition, the performance nutrition staff, what does that look like? Depending on the demands, the physical demands that are occurring up here, what does the fueling look like during this period of time? What kind of education may need to be taking place with the performance nutrition staff? And then how does that change as we get a little bit closer to season, as the weather's changing, as we're having to think about hydration? It all kind of works together. Okay, performance psychology within that unit, again, what are global themes that we can be thinking about in the off season, and then how do they become much more specific as we get closer to preseason, to camp, to the game day environment. Again, it's up for you to kind of have conversations with that staff, and to build it to fit your needs and how it complements everything. Welfare and development, how do different things about leadership development, just understanding how to be an athlete and a person outside of the field when they're graduating. Where does this all fall on this long-term plan? And then like within performance science, what does the monitoring look like? Are we testing daily? Are we monitoring daily? What is the education around recovery? What is the education around athlete development? How can that fit in there? So basically this top part of this plan allows us to put everything on one little section right there, so we can really do some neat things. Now, as we move into the next little lesson, as we're talking about this annual plan here, we're going to move into how we can use this to record different types of volume, maybe that we gather through technology, GPS, force plate data, or even just subjective questionnaires, clipboard tracking, whatever you want to use. We can audit ourselves to look at the response that our athletes are giving us based on the plan that we put out. We can look at some exposures here. So like, this week right here, how many practices did I have this week? More than likely it's 0. How many training sessions did I have? 4. How many meetings did I have? 2. So I get an exposure score of 6. Next week, let's say it's the same kind of deal. Actually for the first 4-week block. Okay, so I know that I'm getting this type of exposure score. We'll call it exposure score, just the different elements of the training environment that our athletes are given. You can call it whatever you want. Now we get to week 5. Remember, we move into the next training block. What do our exposures look like now? Let's say we get to go on a little early access with some of the NCAA rules because of the situation we're in. So let's say we get to practice twice a week. We're still training 4 days a week, and now we're meeting 2 days a week. Notice how my total exposure score pops up. Now this is not really fancy, but it's allowing me to objectively assess now that everything matters. We need to keep that in mind. It doesn't matter if it's a physical stress, a mental stress, a social stress, it does not matter. Everything is going to weigh in on our athletes, and we need to count that somehow, even if we're just internalizing it as coach and understanding that everything contributes to fatigue. Everything contributes to stress on the athlete. We need to teach them how to be able to recover and how to be able to manage that. And that's where a lot of those different departments from the sports performance crew kind of come in. Okay. Down here, maybe this would be something that we're doing a little bit more in season. We'll call this like some of the, if you read up on some of the tactical periodization work, you can have a specific emphasis on a specific day. So then once we get to the season, let me go back a little bit. Sometimes we're in off season. I mentioned the stress response. Sometimes we're in off season. It's really kind of good to go a high-low model. So on certain days, we want to really go high. What that means is I'm going to do a lot of things that really tax the central nervous system. Things like acceleration, sprints, heavy resistance training, big demands that take the whole body are really going to tax the CNS. It's really fatiguing and hard on the body. I want to couple the highs, all my high stressors together in the off season, and then follow that up the next day with a period where I remove those heavy stressors. That doesn't mean I'm not working. I just want to remove the extremely high stress from sprinting, the extremely high resistance in the weight room. Something like an A-B model where day 1 is like a really big run where I'm sprinting, I'm throwing med balls. In the weight room, I may be doing my Olympic lifts. I may have a big lower body day and some pulls. Then the B day, the low day follows. It may be just some low-level conditioning, tempo work that's fatiguing from an energy system standpoint, but not so much neurally on the CNS. And then I follow that up in the weight room with auxiliary movements. I can still do Olympic lifts, Maybe it's like a jerk, maybe like a clean pull. It can even be a major movement. But the things that I'm putting in on that day complement the fact that it's a little bit lower of a CNS strain. We'll go into this a little bit later on how we can model that, but this is maybe where you can put that in. So in the off season on this Monday, maybe that's my high day, and then a low day. Then I have an off day, back high, and low. So now we call that a high-low split. It's coming in high on my CNS, and then it's low. Now, once we get to in season, let's say this right here is a game week. What we don't want to do is tax everything on one given day, because we got to come back the next day and have a great day. In season, the main thing is winning ball games and being prepared for the next day. So what we can do here, and if you read up on the tactical periodization work, we want to not have high lows. We want to stagger what physical quality or overall athletic quality, including the mental, what we're putting on certain days. So let's say one day we're really heavy, high velocity day, and we're sprinting a lot for distance. Okay, that may be the main emphasis for that day, but we're turning the other triggers or the other buckets, if you will. We'll just keep them filled up. The next day it may shift. Maybe we're getting more volume and we turn the speed volume down. So now we're working this quality. What that allows us to do in season is to not pour out all our buckets on one given day like we do in season. It allows us to stay really recovered over time, especially within a week, because we're really working toward game day, toward match day to be prepared for that. That's kind of how this goes. And there's a lot of philosophical differences in this. Okay, so depending on your philosophy as a coach, depending on how you like to train athletes in the weight room, on the field, a lot of that goes in here. There's some really great overarching themes that we can embed in here. But again, it kind of goes back on how you like to train your athletes. But this is a great way we can dig deep and just plot it out over time. So here you can have every single day for 20 weeks plotted out. Again, here's the same thing with recovery, just like on the field emphasis. What is my emphasis in regard to recovery? Certain types of recovery match certain things. So if I have a heavy loading day, I may pair it with a certain type of recovery modality. Again, a lot of philosophical differences there, but it allows you to really tangibly see on this specific day, I know we're going in, so I need to put something that complements that there. I know this day is off from looking up here. So on this day, my recovery needs to match that. You can even have, you know what, coach, we could even put in another, I'm just copying in this section right here and then inserting. If you really want to work firsthand with performance nutrition, you could make one for nutrition here. Okay, you could put nutrition and you can match your fueling here based on up here. Again, completely up to you and kind of how you like to train and organize things, but this is just an opportunity, a structure for you to do this. And the last thing we'll throw on here is maybe this is for your strength and conditioning staff. So like, what are your main movements that you're doing over this period of time? And what I've done in the past and just record keeping for myself is what I'll do is if this is power, let's say this first 4-week block, I'm big on like Olympic lifts. Let's say I'm doing power clean from blocks to knee. Okay, that's one power exercise. I know I'm doing a bunch of power exercises, so I just merge and center that cell, make that thing look fancy. Let's say I'm going to do, just for the sake of the example, 4 power exercises. I just keep adding rows, and then I'm here. And then let's say I do power jerk, and then one day go like a power clean plus front squat combo. And then on the last day, maybe I'm doing barbell squat jumps. So now what I see during this block, those are my power exercises that I've used. And then once I plan this next 4-week block, I know how they progress off of what I just used. And I can do the exact same thing for all these down here. I mean, you can get really fancy, you can color them, color code them. I mean, you can change font, change, do anything. But I think the coolest thing about these annual plans is it's yours. You know, there's no right or wrong answer. Um, I think you can start with the date that you know where you're going. In this case, okay, we're right here, and then we're working backwards. I know where I need to be. What's the last physical quality that I need to have right before I'm going into camp, right into preseason and in the end season? And then what's the stepwise progression, I guess regression, working backwards to put me where I need to be. Okay, so now the big animal in the room now is we don't have a specific date. Okay, we don't necessarily know what that date is, and hopefully by the time this is being watched, we know what that date is. But I think you can really think about it just like fighters work camps, and I've used this example with some people before. But usually fight camps, whether it's mixed martial arts or boxing, are about 8 weeks. Okay, so anytime in a boxer's career or a fighter's career, they're only about 8 weeks away from being fight ready. That's what we want our athletes to be. You know, once we get that go day, that period of time where we know we're getting ready to go in season, we want to be about 8 weeks out. That's going to really allow us to jump into this. We basically have 2 4 week blocks and we're good to go. Then let's say something crazy happens where it gets pushed back again. We just regress a little bit because we know we're only 8 weeks away and then we can jump right back in. Okay, so I think when we lay everything like this, it should calm us down. It should settle our nerves about we have a plan. We have all different departments on this plan. And if something happens, we can adjust this plan and we're going to be in a great place. We're going to continue delving in this, seeing different ways that we can organize this for everybody. And we're going to dig a little deeper into looking at each one of these weeks, days, and just kind of make these plans out. If you need anything, please reach out to us, any member of the sports performance staff. And I can't wait to get everybody back on campus and see everybody going strong. Thank you, guys.